Every textbook tells you Alexander Graham Bell invented the phone. But what if the man who really discovered it lost the trillion-dollar patent because he couldn't afford a $10 fee? Bell's breakthrough was an accidental consequence of studying the human voice, sparking the cruelest patent race in industrial history against rival Elisha Gray. We break down the revolutionary undulatory current and show you how this invention didn't just give us conversation, it built the powerful, controversial monopoly known as Ma Bell. Prepare for the electric muse. Alexander Graham Bell, the undulatory current, and the voice that conquered distance. Hit that subscribe button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and smash the like button to support our history deep dives. The electric muse. Alexander Graham Bell, the undulatory current, and the voice that conquered distance. Overture. The empire of code and the search for multiplicity. The mid-19th century witnessed an unprecedented acceleration in global connectivity, all thanks to the humble electrical impulse. By the 1870s, the transmission of information had fundamentally contracted the world, allowing messages to traverse vast continental spans in mere minutes rather than weeks. This speed was the transformative gift of the telegraph, yet this new communications infrastructure was hobbled by a crucial technical limitation. It communicated only through binary code. The commercial landscape of this era was overwhelmingly dominated by powerful corporate entities, none more formidable than Western Union. Established through a series of consolidations in 1856, Western Union rapidly expanded, completing the transcontinental connection in 1861. By the middle of the 1860s, the enterprise controlled approximately 100,000 miles of wire and commanded a valuation exceeding $40 million, standing as the undisputed financial and technological behemoth of the American Gilded Age. Despite this dominance, the telegraph system suffered from a critical functional bottleneck. Only a single message could be relayed over a wire at any given moment. Consequently, the primary commercial imperative was not the radical invention of a new medium, but the enhancement of the existing one. Electrical practitioners were engaged in a fierce competition to perfect the multiple telegraph, often referred to as the harmonic telegraph. The objective was to increase throughput by transmitting numerous simultaneous messages over the same circuit, differentiated by unique acoustic pitches or frequencies. Eminent inventors, such as Elisha Gray, focused their considerable talents on this very problem, achieving success with acoustic telegraphy in 1875. This prevailing context is essential for grasping the subsequent trajectory of Alexander Graham Bell. His resulting invention was not an explicit answer to an existing commercial void. Instead, it emerged as an unanticipated revolutionary outcome of research originating in a fundamentally different domain. Bell's relative independence from the industry dogma, which prized the optimization of code transmission, allowed him to pursue an avenue that conventional electrical wisdom deemed wholly impractical. Had his focus remained strictly within the engineering orthodoxy of his competitors, he likely would have continued refining coded signals, thereby failing to make the necessary radical leap toward capturing and transmitting the subtle complexity of the human voice. 2. The elocutionist's insight. The conception of the undulatory current. The intellectual path that culminated in the telephone did not begin in the forge of electrical engineering, but within the specialized field of phonetics and the physiological understanding of speech. Alexander Graham Bell's foremost professional commitment, preceding his electrical explorations, lay in the scientific study of vocalization and the instruction of the hearing impaired. This singular focus was a hereditary legacy. Bell was born into a family deeply rooted in elocution. He was the son and grandson of notable researchers in the science of speech. His father, Melville Bell, created the influential visible speech system, a pedagogical tool utilizing symbols to visually represent and facilitate the articulation of sounds, aiding the deaf in learning to speak. This immersive background provided Alexander with a profound, detailed understanding of the physics governing vibration, resonance, and the mechanics of sound waves. This unique expertise enabled Bell's profound conceptual breakthrough. Unlike engineers such as Gray, who sought to send distinct electrical pulses, the intermittent current used for telegraphy, Bell envisioned an apparatus capable of conveying the continuous, intricate waveform characteristic of the human voice. His fundamental hypothesis was that if a membrane could mechanically vibrate in precise synchronicity with speech, that physical motion could then induce an electrical current that perfectly mirrored the auditory waveform, analogous to the function of the human eardrum. Bell termed this pivotal technical concept the undulatory or oscillatory current of electricity. This current, unlike the sharp binary on-off signals of the telegraph, varies ceaselessly in magnitude, allowing it to convey the full, complex dataset of speech. He formally presented this theoretical bedrock in his pivotal work, Researches in Telephony, delivered in May 1876. The realization of Bell, the sound theoretician, required a pragmatic, skilled collaborator to transition the concept from abstract theory into tangible hardware. That partner was Thomas Watson. Engaged in 1875 from an electrical instrument workshop, Watson supplied the essential technical skill set required to construct and rigorously validate Bell's highly abstract designs. Watson's role transcended that of a mere assistant. He was an inventor in his own right, later obtaining over 35 patents for crucial innovations, including the indispensable ringer to signal an incoming call, and the switch that disengaged the circuit, all vital components in making the telephone a practical commercial device. Their collaboration underscores the reality that truly transformative innovations frequently necessitate the synthesis of abstract conceptual genius and dedicated practical engineering prowess. 3. The race to the ledger, priority, liquid transmitters, and the fateful caveat. The establishment of the telephone's invention is less defined by a singular moment of engineering creation and more by a dramatic, high-stakes competition for legal priority at the patent office. The common historical account often minimizes the concurrent efforts of other innovators, most notably Elisha Gray, whose independent work culminated in a crucial, defining confrontation on February 14th. On that specific Monday in 1876, both Alexander Graham Bell and Elisha Gray submitted defining documentation pertaining to the electrical transmission of speech. Bell filed his complete patent application, number 174,465, which was formally logged as the fifth document received by the office that day. Gray, an accomplished electrical engineer and co-founder of Western Electric, filed a caveat, a formal notification of impending patent, which detailed a design for a speaking telegraph, logged as the 39th submission. While the exact sequence of events remains debated, the established legal principle favored Bell, owing to his submission of a full application over Gray's less legally binding caveat. The most virulent point of contention revolved around the liquid transmitter design. This mechanism utilized a vibrating element brought into precise, minute contact with a conductive liquid. Bell employed a water acid solution, or vinegar in model designs, which allowed the variable resistance necessary to perfectly modulate the vocal waveform. Gray's caveat included a clear description of a liquid transmitter. Generations of critics have asserted that Bell improperly gained access to Gray's caveat and subsequently integrated the key idea immediately preceding his successful March 1876 transmission. However, historical evidence offers a strong counter-narrative supporting Bell's independence. His exhaustive experimental logbooks, which date back years prior to the 1876 filings, exhibit a consistent and rational technical progression toward devices employing liquid resistance, including detailed schematics strikingly similar to the device he ultimately utilized. Furthermore, Bell had already obtained a patent for a primitive facsimile machine in April 1875, a full 10 months before Gray filed his telephone caveat, which contained drawings of multiple liquid transmitters. This documentation suggests that Bell was developing the core technology independently, even if the urgency of the patent race spurred the final implementation. Gray's defining error was not technical, but profoundly strategic and legal. Although Bell's application was initially paused for 3 months to permit Gray to submit a full patent claim, Gray's legal counsel advised him to abandon the caveat entirely, presumably believing that Bell's priority could not be challenged. By choosing not to contest Bell's claim, Gray cleared the path for Bell to be awarded U.S. Patent 174,465 uncontested on March 7, 1876. Gray's tactical retreat, likely influenced by his greater confidence in the immediate commercial viability of his multiple harmonic telegraph, represents a pivotal moment in industrial history, a moment where the dominance of legal and corporate strategy eclipsed the purity of technical invention. 4. The Precursor's Tragedy, Antonio Meucci and the $10 Barrier. A complete appreciation of the telephone's true origins must incorporate the poignant narrative of Antonio Meucci, the Italian innovator whose crucial work substantially predated Bell's patent and whose desperate lack of funds inadvertently secured Bell's historical prominence. Meucci, whose work spanned Havana and later Staten Island, New York, conceived the fundamental principle of the telegrafo parlante, or teletrofono, as early as 1849. He established a functional, rudimentary communications line within his own residence, linking his laboratory to his wife's upper-floor bedroom following her debilitating diagnosis of arthritis. He publicly demonstrated this working invention in 1860, with a description subsequently published in a local New York Italian-language newspaper. Meucci's ultimate failure was entirely due to financial destitution and circumstantial misfortune. He depleted his entire life savings in the relentless pursuit of his research. Critically, he failed to secure the necessary capital for a full patent application, forcing him instead to file a temporary 1-year renewable caveat, commencing in December 1871. Compounding this tragedy, Meucci faced profound difficulty in mastering the English language sufficiently to effectively navigate the intricate American business community. The fatal lapse occurred after 1874, when Meucci, by that point reliant on public assistance, could not afford the modest $10 fee required to maintain his caveat. Historical consensus maintains that had he managed to secure that small sum, no patent could have been issued to Bell. Adding to the misfortune, Meucci later discovered that his working prototypes, which had been stored at a Western Union affiliate laboratory, were purportedly lost, a facility where Alexander Graham Bell later conducted his own experiments. This systemic failure to safeguard Meucci's intellectual rights cast a long shadow over Bell's legacy. In 1887, the United States government initiated legal proceedings to nullify Bell's patent, citing grounds of fraud and misrepresentation, a severe case that the Supreme Court deemed viable and remanded for a full trial. Meucci passed away in 1889. When Bell's patent eventually expired in 1893, the government's case was formally discontinued as moot, leaving the definitive question of the true inventor unresolved legally. It was not until 2002 that the U.S. House of Representatives formally honored Meucci's contributions, acknowledging his foundational work in the development of the telephone. Meucci's history remains a powerful demonstration that in the commercially aggressive Gilded Age, superior financial resources and legal access served as the true gatekeepers of ownership and historical credit. V. Demonstration and acclamation. The voice achieves electrical reality. Technical triumph and commercial acceptance are two distinct milestones in any innovation's timeline. Bell achieved the former on March 10, 1876, only 3 days after his patent was officially issued, thereby confirming his theoretical premise of the undulatory current. Collaborating with Thomas Watson, Bell established a rudimentary circuit utilizing the controversial liquid transmitter, a functional apparatus where a membrane vibrated a wire within a mild acidic solution, precisely modulating the circuit's resistance. Bell, positioned in one room, spoke the first intelligible phrases ever conveyed electrically. "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." Watson, stationed in the adjacent room, instantly recognized Bell's distinct voice and comprehended the message, validating the entire experiment and establishing the principle of continuous waveform transmission. This moment marked the practical birth of the telephone. However, the wider world remained largely skeptical, viewing the device as an ingenious but trivial talking toy. The invention required substantial public relations efforts and crucial financial affirmation to secure the massive capital necessary for infrastructural development. This critical validation arrived unexpectedly at the U.S. Centennial Exposition held in Philadelphia in 1876. Amidst towering exhibitions of industrial power, such as the colossal Corliss steam engine, Bell showcased his modest device. His exhibit was visited by two figures of immense influence, whose reactions instantaneously elevated the device from mere curiosity to national sensation. The first was Dom Pedro II, the intellectual and widely respected Emperor of Brazil. Upon listening through the receiver, the Emperor's astonished exclamation, "My God, it talks!" was instantly disseminated and became the international headline that guaranteed Bell's widespread recognition. The second decisive endorsement came from the highest level of scientific authority, Lord Kelvin, William Thomson, universally recognized as one of the era's foremost physicists. Kelvin, acknowledging the profound theoretical and technical complexity of the undulatory current, declared the telephone the most wonderful thing I have seen in America. This dual confirmation, royal and scientific, provided the ultimate psychological impetus for investors, transforming a technical curiosity into a commercially viable proposition. The validation achieved at the Centennial Exhibition served as the vital catalyst, securing the necessary investment to move the technology from the laboratory into the emerging infrastructure age. 6. The consolidation of the voice monopoly. The ascent of AT&T. The aggressive commercial rollout of the telephone commenced in 1877. Bell and his financial partners immediately grasped that infrastructural control was as critical as the patent itself. The initial years, 1878 to 1880, saw a brief but intense competitive skirmish as the established telegraph giant, Western Union, attempted to enter the field using superior instruments developed by both Thomas Edison and Elisha Gray. Bell's counter-strategy was swift and assertive: immediate litigation. The Bell Company initiated a patent infringement lawsuit against Western Union. In 1879, Bell secured a landmark out-of-court settlement that indelibly cemented his control over the burgeoning industry. Under the terms of the agreement, Western Union agreed to withdraw entirely from the telephone market for 17 years, sell all its operational exchanges to Bell, and transfer all competing telephone-related patents, including those of Edison and Gray, to Bell. In return, Bell agreed to abstain from competing in the telegraph market. This strategic legal victory proved decisive. It guaranteed Bell a near-total monopoly on the technology until 1894, when the original patent's term expired. The company rapidly consolidated, establishing the American Bell Telephone Company in 1880, which later led to the incorporation of the American Telegraph and Telephone Company, AT&T, in 1885. The Bell organization utilized relentless legal action to enforce its patent dominance, frequently suppressing competing technologies and restricting access, which led to huge pockets of demand unmet across the country. Yet, Despite public conflicts over high tariffs and restricted service, adoption was remarkably rapid. Within 3 years of the first line construction, nearly 49,000 telephones were already active by 1881. Under visionary leaders like Theodore Vail, the company adopted a corporate mission encapsulated by the motto, "One System, One Policy, Universal Service." While this concept, a unified, nationwide network, was appealing, it translated practically into a rigidly controlled vertical monopoly. The sheer scale and capital intensity required to construct this sprawling network across the vast American continent arguably favored this centralized architecture, thereby justifying decades of industry dominance where less profitable local residential services were cross-subsidized by high-margin long-distance revenues. The strategic elimination of competition via litigation permanently defined the structure of American telecommunications for the following century. 7. The lingering imprint, from systemic monopoly to market fragmentation. The sheer size and seemingly unassailable power of the Bell system, AT&T, eventually guaranteed an inevitable clash with federal antitrust regulators. The centralized infrastructure model, born out of Bell's early legal triumphs, while effective for constructing a unified national network, proved politically and economically unsustainable under mounting pressure for market competition. The seeds of the system's eventual dissolution were sown across the 20th century, culminating in a major antitrust action filed by the U.S. Department of Justice in 1974, alleging numerous illegal practices designed to suppress market entry. Even during this protracted period, influential figures like AT&T CEO John D. DeButz vigorously resisted change, delivering defiant public speeches that rejected the principle of competition and defended Vail's core tenet of "one system, one policy" as a crucial standard of public utility. The extensive legal conflict was finally resolved via settlement on January 8, 1982, initiating the massive divestiture of the Bell system that occurred in 1984. This monumental court-ordered decision effectively fractured the centralized control of the entity known as Ma Bell, resulting in the creation of several independent regional operating companies, while AT&T retained its long-distance and manufacturing operations. The immediate consequence was a dramatic surge in competition, particularly within the long-distance market, where companies such as MCI and Sprint swiftly gained prominence. However, the breakup also generated complicated and enduring outcomes. Local residential service rates, which had historically been kept artificially low through subsidies derived from AT&T's highly profitable long-distance services, began to experience faster rates of increase than inflation. Moreover, the divestiture fundamentally altered the methods by which major national broadcast television and radio networks distributed programming, illustrating the pervasive depth of the Bell infrastructure's penetration into American media distribution. The corporate history of the Bell system, from its founding through successful patent litigation in 1879 to its radical government-mandated fragmentation in 1984, established an indelible framework for the regulation of large-scale communication utilities in the United States. This cycle of disruptive innovation, monopolistic centralization, and subsequent regulatory breakup provides the crucial historical precedent for contemporary policy debates concerning digital giants and network neutrality. The fundamental question, whether critical communication infrastructure should be managed as a centralized public utility or an aggressively competitive marketplace, remains the true enduring legacy of the Bell monopoly. 8. The enduring footprint, Bell's complex conclusion. Alexander Graham. Bell's personal life, much like his defining invention, was expansive, multifaceted, and often marked by contradiction. While the telephone stands as his unassailable greatest contribution, his intellectual curiosity spanned a vast range of subjects, including flight, climate control, experimental sheep breeding, and his deep-seated commitment to speech and deafness. Later in his life, he became controversially involved in the emerging field of eugenics, demonstrating a nuanced and at times troubling application of his belief in scientific solutions for societal progress. Bell spent his later years residing at Bain Breg, Nova Scotia, where he was interred following his death in 1922. To honor the passing of the man who had irrevocably redefined human connectivity, all telephone communication across the continent of North America was deliberately silenced for 1 minute. This brief period of imposed silence served as a striking physical demonstration of the telephone's complete assimilation into the essential infrastructure of society, a cultural acknowledgement that the invention had moved past utility to become the binding mechanism of the continent. The invention of the telephone achieved a fundamental breakthrough that the telegraph could only suggest. It successfully transmitted the emotional context, nuance, and immediate personal recognition inherent in the human voice across physical barriers. It fundamentally increased the speed of daily life, dismantling the constraints imposed by geography for personal interaction. Bell's design was the essential conceptual precursor to every subsequent evolution in mass communication, from broadcast media to the global internet, which merely integrates all these previous media forms into one pervasive information architecture. The ultimate enduring narrative is not simply the technical brilliance of the undulatory current, but the potent convergence of a unique theoretical background, shrewd legal strategy, and the ability to command public and financial trust, thereby successfully installing the empire of the human voice across the modern globe. The simple command, "Mr. Watson, come here," launched more than just a private conversation. It ignited a brutal war for control that ultimately created the vast AT&T empire that bound a continent. The battles fought over those first copper wires and the eventual breakup of Ma Bell in 1984 continued to define how we regulate everything from fiber optics to the smartphone in your pocket. The story of the electric Muse reminds us that the ability to control the flow of human conversation remains the most powerful commodity in history. Hit that subscribe button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and smash the like button to support our history deep dives.